Gordon and Sonia Sauder are here to discuss today's top stories now, and we're sticking with that theme of forgiveness.
Yeah, Prince Harry has reportedly invited the King to the Invictus Games next year in a bid to publicly heal their rift. Now, Bryony, you've actually spent time with Prince Harry. Do you think their relationship, after everything that's happened, can be saved? I hope so, but...
I think their relation, yeah, absolutely. And I think, listen, I don't know about you, Josie, Paddy, Sonia, but if my family were put under the microscope that the royals are put under, it would be an absolute, car crash, yeah. So I always think, no, mine too. But I always think, so, look, I've worked on and off with Prince Harry for 10 years in terms of mental health work and stuff. I've been to Montecito when Spare came out to talk about that book, and I think sometimes the people were very harsh and said that he was very harsh in the book about what it was like being a royal. Actually, what I think is that over the last few decades, we've spent ages going, what's it like to be a royal? What's it like to be a royal? And he wrote a book where he told us what it was like to be a royal, and we don't like this. We don't want to hear this. We don't want to hear this stuff. So all he's done, I think he was a truth teller, trying to be a cycle breaker, take of that what you will. But I also think that Charles and him are, I think they've always had this sort of like quite a close relationship that was perhaps strained. Well, it was definitely strained. But I think that obviously he went to Highgrove last month with the kids so that the King met with Archie and Lilibet for the first time since they were tiny.
Oh, so King Charles has met the children now?
Yeah.
Right,
so
okay.
they visited, on their visit last month, they visited. And then Harry's actually coming back to London next month for the annual Well Child Awards, which he always comes to. And apparently he's accepted an offer from his father to stay at Buckingham Palace. So, which obviously there was a lot of sort of drama about that. And the fact that the offer was withdrawn because it took too, I don't know, there's a lot of drama, right? But I think we all would love to see the King at the Invictus Games. I think the Invictus Games are amazing. And I think what Prince Harry's involvement in it is amazing.
And to meet his grandchildren after all those time, you think, oh, all those years that I've been missing out on, look at them. I mean, how old are they now?
I think they must be.
He's missed out on a good few years. He's missed out on a good few years, hasn't he?
Yeah.
It's FaceTime. You don't have to see them. You can just get on the phone, FaceTime me. You don't know what's gone. You never know. The royals have got a few quid.
Yeah, they've definitely got FaceTime. They've got Zoom.
Yeah, exactly.
They've got,
It's quite hard to engage little kids on FaceTime, though. I know from trying to talk to my niece and nephew who don't live, very close. That, I always want to FaceTime them, but, they get bored after, a minute, basically, unless you do the funny faces with them.
I really hope they can sort this out. I really do.
Yeah.
I miss Harry.
I love Harry. Harry's great. He's exactly what he says on the tin. That's Harry. Do you know what I mean? And I think we need a bit of lightness. The royals have had a tough few years. Some might say that it's because of Harry, but I would say it's more to do with the man formerly known as Prince Andrew.
For years, the public conversation has been dominated by one simple narrative. Harry walked away. Harry attacked his family. Harry burned every bridge. But what if that story was never the complete picture? What if the loudest voices weren't necessarily the most accurate ones? And what if today's conversation marks the beginning of a subtle but important shift in how Harry's story is being understood? Because here's what stood out to me. Nobody on that panel was calling Harry bitter. Nobody was painting him as the villain. Instead, they were talking about forgiveness. They were talking about family. They were talking about hope. And perhaps most importantly, they openly described Harry as someone who told truth, rather than someone who simply set out to damage the institution. They also expressed hope that King Charles and Harry could repair their relationship, highlighting Harry's reported invitation for the King to attend the Invictus Games as a meaningful opportunity for healing. That matters. Because if you followed this story from the beginning, you'll know that Harry has consistently been portrayed as the one who closed the door. Yet, time after time, we see something different. we see Harry attending his father's coronation. We see him travelling back to Britain for well child. And now, according to the discussion, we see him extending another olive branch through the Invictus Games. Ask yourself this: does that sound like someone obsessed with revenge? Or does it sound like someone who still believes reconciliation is worth pursuing, even after years of public disagreement? One of the panellists made a point that I think deserves far more attention than it's getting. They said we've spent decades asking what it's really like to be a royal. Then Harry finally answered that question in interview, and suddenly many people didn't want to hear the answer anymore. They suggested he was trying to tell the truth about his experience and break harmful cycles rather than simply attack his family. Think about that. For years, documentaries, biographies, royal experts and tabloids all made fortunes speculating about life behind palace walls. Speculation was welcomed because it sold newspapers. But when one of the people who actually lived that life shared his own perspective, the reaction from many quarters wasn't curiosity, it was outrage. That contradiction has always fascinated me. You can't spend decades demanding honesty from members of the royal family and then condemn one of them simply because his honesty makes people uncomfortable. Now, that doesn't mean everyone has to agree with every word Harry wrote. People are entitled to different opinions. But there's a significant difference between disagreeing with someone's account and insisting they had no right to tell it in the first place. That's where I believe Harry has often been misunderstood. From the Oprah interview to and beyond, his central message has been remarkably consistent. He has repeatedly spoken about protecting his wife, protecting his children, and refusing to allow history to repeat itself. Notice what that message isn't about. It's not about abolishing the monarchy. It's not about taking the crown down. It's about breaking cycles that he believes caused immense personal pain. And whether you agree with every conclusion or not, those motivations deserve to be examined honestly rather than dismissed outright. That's why I think this reported invitation to King Charles carries more weight than people realise. Harry could have chosen bitterness. He could have simply moved on and never looked back. Instead, the reported gesture places reconciliation at the centre of one of the projects closest to his heart, Invictus. And what better setting could there be? Invictus isn't about palace politics, it isn't about headlines, it isn't about who's winning or losing a public relations battle. It's about wounded veterans rebuilding their lives through resilience, courage and hope. If there is anywhere that symbolises second chances, it's Invictus. If reconciliation is going to happen anywhere, perhaps it should happen in a place built around healing rather than conflict. That's what makes this so powerful. The conversation on also reflected something many ordinary people understand instinctively. Every family has disagreements. The difference is that most of us aren't forced to live those disagreements under the glare of global media attention. One panellist even remarked that if their own family were put under the same microscope as the royals, it would be a car crash. That perspective introduces something that's often missing from royal commentary: empathy. Because it's easy to judge from the outside. It's much harder to imagine every disagreement, every misunderstanding, and every difficult conversation becoming tomorrow's front-page story. Perhaps that's why today's discussion felt refreshingly human. Instead of treating Harry as a permanent villain, it treated him as a son, as a father, as a brother, as someone navigating an extraordinarily complicated family dynamic while millions of strangers watch from the sidelines. And maybe that's the lesson we should all take from this. Reconciliation doesn't require pretending nothing happened. It doesn't require rewriting history. It requires recognizing that families are complicated, that healing takes courage, and that extending an olive branch is never a sign of weakness. If anything, it takes tremendous strength. Whether King Charles ultimately accepts that invitation, or whether this reported opportunity develops further, remains to be seen. But one thing is becoming increasingly difficult to ignore. The narrative is evolving. When mainstream discussions begin acknowledging Harry's commitment to family, his work through Invictus, and the possibility that he was trying to break harmful cycles rather than simply create chaos, it suggests the public conversation is becoming more nuanced than it once was. Perhaps that's the real story here. Not whether every disagreement disappears overnight, not whether every relationship is instantly repaired, but whether people are finally willing to look beyond years of headlines and ask a more balanced question. What if Prince Harry's greatest act of loyalty wasn't staying silent? What if it was having the courage to tell his story while still leaving the door open for his family to walk through?